What's up, my mother trucking dudes? Hey, I just wanted to say I appreciate all the support from all you guys. I don't take this lightly. This means everything to me. All you dudes that have been supporting me forever. I know we've been through a lot of crazy times, a lot of cool times, a lot of fun moments. There's been, I'm one of the most honest, just give it to you like it is kind of YouTubers out there. So you probably disagreed with me from time to time. You probably agreed with me from time to time. But just wanted to say I really appreciate all you guys that still follow and support me no matter what. It means a lot. And, like, a lot of these YouTubers don't even give you their real opinion. They give you a sugar-coated version of what they're really thinking so that they don't offend you. I would much rather be 100% honest with you and you disagree with what I'm saying versus me sugarcoat it, not really tell you what I'm thinking, and you always agree with me. You see what I'm saying? I would much rather have a real, and that's okay, dog. Some people think that just because I'm out here really voicing my opinion and really saying these things about these games or whatever, they think I'm trying to be like, you can't have a differing opinion than me. That's never been the case, man. The reason why I'm so freedom of speech, say whatever the hell you want to say, is because I feel like everybody should be able to do that. Everybody should be able to voice their opinion. And there's been such a stigma and a status and a thing with YouTube where most people just don't, in just modern day life nowadays, everybody's, so offended about everything that you feel like you can't even voice your real opinion anymore. You feel like you can't even say what you really mean anymore. And dude, I'm all for that. Like, say what you want to say, dog. The whips in Supercross 3 are not perfect, okay? Yeah, I did come in there in the first couple of videos, like my review video of this game, and, kind of raved about the whips and the, how free they were and stuff like that. And that all still holds true. I think they have improved massively from what their whips have been in any other milestone game. I think they are massively improved. But that's not to say that they're like amazing or that they're perfect, right? People always take things to the extreme when it comes to YouTube or what anybody's saying on YouTube. I wasn't saying these whips were perfect, dog. That is not at all what I was trying to get at. But, there's not even really a quote-unquote scrub system to this game. It's really just a whip system. I mean, yeah, you can kind of sort of scrub in this game, but not like you would scrub on Reflex and stuff like that, right? Oh my God, Spencer bringing up Reflex again. Yeah, I'm going to bring up the greatest arcade motocross game whenever I'm talking about an arcade motocross game and trying to compare on what's good in an arcade motocross game. Hell yes, I'm going to bring up the greatest arcade motocross game, dog. I don't know why some people are like, oh man, Spencer's just going to bring up Reflex again. Yeah, I am. That'd be kind of like if you're talking about basketball and you're wanting to compare how good somebody is, you're going to bring up Michael Jordan very often, very frequently. If you're going to talk about how great one of the greatest basketball players are, you're going to be talking about Michael Jordan over and over and over and over. That's the same way with Reflex. When I come in here and talk about these motocross games, I'm going to be talking about Reflex over and over and over because that's what you compare to. That's what you base everything from, right? Like, that's just is what it is. I mean, it's just, I don't know what else you want me to tell you, but that Reflex just has superior physics. It just has superior whip scrub systems to it. And some people just don't understand that. Either they haven't gotten deep enough into Reflex or they haven't played it on some of the console versions that I feel like have personally better a physics feel and, whip feel and stuff like that. I don't know why, but on the 360 version of Reflex, it just has another level of a feeling to it than like the PC version to me personally. I'm not really sure why, but could be a frame rate thing. I'm not exactly sure. A couple people's kind of talked about that, but yeah, like with Supercross 3, I mean, with the whole whip side, yeah, it doesn't look super realistic. It doesn't look, oh my God, like, they never need to fix their whips or adjust on their whips now. What I was trying to get across in some of those early review videos was just simply, we finally are going in a direction that I feel like we can actually get somewhere off of with these whips that we have in Supercross 3, right? Whereas all the previous milestone games, it was really like a crapshoot with the whip systems. It was just like a beta test. It was like, just so restricted. Really reminded me of the days of when MX versus ATV Supercross came out. And it had those super restrictive whips. You couldn't even hardly move the bike over. No matter how hard you tried to whip it over, you just couldn't even move, right? There's a whole difference in having a bad whip system and having a restrictive whip system, right? I would always, and I've said this in videos before, but I will always take a quote-unquote bad whip system over a restricted whip system, because a restricted whip system, you can't even do a whip. It's not even a whip system. You understand what I'm saying? Like what they had in MX vs. ATV Supercross, what they've had in pretty much all these milestone games. Yeah, once they started getting to the first Supercross game, you were able to start kind of flicking it out to the side a little bit more than you could like in some of the previous milestone games, but still you were super locked on that one axis. You know, that's been Milestone's biggest issue, is their whip systems have just been hitting a button, playing an animation, throwing it out to the side on that one axis, and having to turn both your thumbsticks the opposite direction instead of both the same directions. But now with Supercross 3, you can do either one. You can turn them both the same direction, you can turn them opposite directions, you can turn them, you know, one up, like your left thumbstick up and to the left and your right thumbstick down and to the right, and it's going to do like an oppo style. You know, they've really opened up the controls side of how you do whips with Supercross 3, and that's been such a massive improvement in my opinion to it. Yeah, the whips are not like reflex whips. Yeah, they're not like super, you know, super free, do whatever you want to do, but it's so much more than what it was. That was my biggest point I was trying to make. Some people kind of took it like I was trying to say, oh my God, you know, these are just the most perfect whips ever. They never need to adjust their whips ever again. It's just perfect. I wasn't trying to get that. I wasn't trying to say that. I was trying to say that this is so much more advanced physics to a whip system than what they had previously. So much more advanced. Like, it's not even funny. I mean, they could definitely take this current whip system in Supercross 3 and tinker on it, tweak it, make it to where you just kind of naturally flow up the jump face when you're turning, kind of like you do on Reflex, where it's super free like that, but not crazy arcade free like MX vs. ATV All Out, right? You got to kind of find a mix. You know, there's a balance to all of it. That's what I've always said, right? There's just a balance to it, right? You want to have enough movement, but not so much movement that you do, you know, a 360 no-scope backflip every time you come off a jump face on complete accident, kind of like you do on All Out, right? There's got to be a flow. There's got to be that natural flow to it when you come off the jump face. And I just feel like Reflex did that the absolute best, still to this day. Because with Reflex, the difference between doing a scrub in Reflex and doing like a normal whip in Reflex is a lot. Like, it's two completely different things. You know what I'm saying? Whereas most of these motocross games, you can't even hardly do like a scrub that's quote-unquote different than a normal whip. It's just kind of doing the same thing, right? Even with Supercross 3, I mean, it's hard to actually do like a quote-unquote low-to-the-ground scrub versus an actual whip. Yeah, you can do it a little bit, but it's a little wonky, right? It's a little janky. It's really just more of a whip system. And this game does have a bit of an issue when you do start to kind of whip it up in the air. Specifically, I've noticed when you turn both your thumbsticks the same direction, you kind of get in this bizarre fake-looking where the... Let me see if I can show you right here on this jump face. Try not to pop off. See how it kind of gets in this bizarre, almost like it loses its in-air inertia. I don't know if you call it velocity. I don't really know what you would call that, but it's almost like you get stuck in one place and you're just rotating the bike in one place in the air, kind of in a unrealistic way, right? A really unrealistic way. So they do have a little bit of an issue with that side of it, but it's just going to come with time, right? You know, finally, I feel like the reason why I've been so not as harsh on Supercross 3 as I have some of the previous milestone games is simply because it feels like we're actually getting somewhere now with Supercross 3, in my opinion, whereas it felt like all these previous milestone games, we were taking the smallest of small baby steps, and sometimes we were even taking steps backwards, like with MXGP Pro or MXGP 2019, those were steps backwards, right? And when Supercross 2 first came out and that whip system first came out, oh my God, that was 3 steps backwards before they updated it, right? You couldn't even bring the whip back around. It was so unacceptable for a AAA, motocross game, like so unacceptable, especially one like Milestone's been AAA, full-blown, made multiple games. That whip system at the beginning of Supercross 2, that was so unacceptable, I can't even explain it. So, we've been through the bottom of the barrel. We've hit rock bottom with these Milestone games, right? That's kind of what I was trying to get at. And I feel like Supercross 3 is really, we're on the come up now. Now we're finally getting somewhere with this physics system and these track designs and this skill gap and this leaning forward and backwards. I'm not saying they're all the way to where they need to be yet, but we are getting somewhere, bro. And it just makes me so happy to see that with Milestones. Some of you dudes thought I was some big Milestone hater. Man, I was just trying to get them to improve their games, to get to a point where I could really come in here and, enjoy their games for long periods of time and really have a fun experience like I used to have back in the days on Reflex and Unleashed and, those kind of games for their time, right? They were amazing, man. Had so much content. And for their time, Unleashed and Untamed and those games were really pretty solid physics and skill gap and all that for their time, right? Got to remember that. Reflex was ahead of its time. Reflex was a decade ahead of its time. That's what makes Reflex the greatest arcade motocross game. It was literally a decade ahead of its time physics-wise. There's not even a question about it. And you've seen that now that we've gotten more than a decade after the launch of Reflex, and we're still struggling to even get remotely close to the physics feel of what Reflex was, right? Alive wasn't on the level of Reflex. MX vs. ATV Supercross certainly wasn't on the level of Reflex. None of these Milestone games have been on the level of Reflex, but Supercross 3 is definitely the closest one I've felt to that Reflex sort of feel thus far, and I have high hopes for this next MX vs. ATV game. I really think that one's going to feel a lot more like Reflex than what MX vs. ATV All Out felt like. All Out just had a little kiss of Reflex. It didn't have... I feel like Supercross 3 feels more like Reflex than All Out. You know what I'm saying? So... But it's just like, that is the standard. I mean, that's what all these arcade motocross games should be shooting for. I'm not saying you got to make an exact Reflex clone or an exact Reflex replica, but you're just wanting to get closer to that leaning forward and backward system, closer to that fluent flow whip system off the jump face, but there's skill gap to it, and you can bring it back around. You can whip it all the way sideways. You can do different kinds of whips. There's variation to it. It's not just hitting a button, playing an animation. You don't sort of get locked in the air. It's free enough, but it's not insane to where you can just do, 5 360s over one jump face. Like, but you can actually scrub close to the ground depending on how hard you turn the thumbsticks before you come off the jump face, whereas the whip is more leaning back and kind of doing it a little bit more once you're in the air. Right? Like, that's just kind of the way it should be. But either way, I'm just so happy that this game, you're not forced, you're not pigeonholed into turning both your thumbsticks the opposite direction. It just does sort of a different kind of a whip when you do that, but you're not forced to do it. You can turn both your thumbsticks the same direction if you want to, right? It's almost like you're getting if you turn both your thumbsticks opposite directions, you're getting like a Milestone whip, and if you turn both your thumbsticks the same direction over the jump face, it's like you're getting more of an MX versus ATV all-out style whip, right? That's almost seems like that's what they've done here, is they've just sort of plopped in, when you turn both thumbsticks the same direction, they plopped in where it sort of does like it does on All Out, does that sort of a style of a whip. But when you turn them both opposite directions, it does more of like a Supercross 2 after the patch style whip, right? Kind of like that right there. But yeah, they both sort of do lock on a axis to some degree, but it's nowhere near the axis locking that we had previously, right? I know some people were kind of getting on my case a little bit about that. I was talking about how free these whips are and how, oh crap, it used to lock on the axis and it doesn't really lock on the axis anymore. It still has a little bit of that axis locking crap going on, but like more than Reflex, obviously, but you got to understand where we were at beforehand. Like, oh my God, I didn't know if they was ever going to get the whip system figured out. I mean, it was a literal beta test in Supercross 2. and shit like that, right? So I'm just saying that's why I've been so positive about Supercross 3, is because of feeling like we're actually getting somewhere. Is this the Taj Mahal? Is this game perfect? Is this game, oh yeah, Milestone finally did it? No, it's not really like that. But for Milestone standards, this is pretty freaking good. You know what I mean? Like, if you're talking old school MX versus ATV standards, this is just like a okay game. But if you're talking Milestone standards, this is like, oh my God, finally Milestone is figuring this out. Holy crap, this is crazy. And it's funny because it's because of Milestone getting bought out by THQ Nordic, the same company that MX vs. ATV is under. There's no question in my mind that's what has caused such a change in Supercross 3. There is no doubt in my mind, man. Like, that you better be a little more, some of you Milestone fanboys better be a little more appreciative for MX vs. ATV, because that's why you're getting these kind of more advanced physics system and these more advanced whip systems. That's why you're getting all this, dog. If Milestone wouldn't have sold out to THQ Nordic, we would have had just a first Supercross game replica. Would have been the same game, basically, but it just would have been on a whole new set of tracks. Why do you people, some of you dudes, get so giddy off of that? I don't understand. Go play the first Supercross game if you want to play that. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to have another AAA Supercross game that feels like the first Supercross. That makes no sense. Those physics are so behind their time. They're so basic. They're so just not developed. They just weren't developed. I mean, Milestone just hasn't really gotten that true, you know, multiple decade-long MX versus ATV style physics system. They just haven't gotten that down. And finally, with Supercross 3, we've started to get more of that feeling. So it's made the whips better, it's made the cornering better, it's made the jumping better, it's made the skill gap better, it's made the fun factor better, it's made everything better. And I just don't see how people disagree with that. I really don't. But it is what it is. You can have your own opinion, I guess. But, oh my God. I could literally sit here and play Supercross 3 100 times more than I could the first or second Supercross game. Literally 100 times more. There's just so much more depth to the gameplay, man. So much more skill gaps. So much more competitive replayability. That whole sort of vibe is tenfold of what the first two Supercross games are. It is so much more than those games, man. And it's just gone to show you how far behind Milestone really was on their physics back in those days. Such a facade, man. Such a graphical facade. They was tricking you into thinking it was some super amazing Supercross game, but really it was just a bunch of graphics and Monster Energy logos, dog. That's all it was. Now you're getting actual gameplay. Now you're getting actual replayability, skill gap, you know, all this kind of stuff, inertia, physics systems, all this crap that's so crucial to motocross gaming. You're now finally getting all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what they do in the next couple Milestone games and the next MX vs. ATV game as far as the whip systems. I seriously do have high hopes. I think we're on to something here. I do think MX vs. ATV all-out whips were better than MX vs. ATV Supercross whips. Kind of goes back to that. I would rather have complete, free, crazy, mobile-filling whips than restrictive whips. You never want restrictive whips. You never want to have it to where you come off a jump face and you turn both your thumbsticks as hard as you can possibly turn them, and it does that right there. If your AAA motocross game feels like that, it's not ready to be released. If you come off a jump face, let me get over here to a big jump face. This was how a lot of these Milestone games were. This is how MX vs. ATV Supercross was. Well, if you come off a big jump face like this and you turn both your thumbsticks all the way and the most it does is that right there, you have an issue, bro. You have a problem. yeah, some of the official Supercross games, when you come off a jump face, it would sort of like do like that. It would sort of get it somewhat out there, but it would just do the same thing over and over and over. So the thing you don't want with a whip system, you don't want hit a button, play an animation, repetitive whips, and you also don't want restrictive whips. Those are the two biggest key factors to a whip system that you want to steer completely clear from, that you want to make sure that your game does not feel like that. It cannot be restrictive feeling, and it cannot feel like you are just hitting a button, playing an animation over and over and over, the same animation over and over and over. It's got to have variation to it, and it's got to have movement to it. It's got to have enough freeness to it to be able to do cool, different kind of whips, right? It's got to have those things, man. It has got to have those things. There's not even a question about it. Oh my God, if I was sitting at the round table when these AAA motocross companies are sitting there with their whip systems, dude, I would get that lined out. That's all I'm saying. MX vs. ATV, or who the heck ever making a game, I will get your whip system lined out. I'm not saying I'm technically advanced enough to actually figure out how to, you know, make it, like, do it myself in a computer programming, you know, a gaming developing, you know, program or whatever, but I could certainly tell you what it needs to be. I could certainly get in there and test play it for you and feel it in my own hands and tell you what needs to be changed, what needs to be fixed, what needs to be improved with the whip system. 100%. Just go look through the history of my videos, man. I've been saying this forever, been saying this for 3-4 years. I mean, MX vs. ATV themselves have told me that they've listened to multiples of my videos over the years and made changes to their games based off of things that I've said in my video. They've literally told me that before. So, I mean, I'm just saying, I've got quite the history of basically telling these games to do something, and then it takes them another 3 or 4 games before they do it. But then they finally do it. It's like, man, I could have helped you so much sooner. I could have got that. And yeah, I understand. It's game development. Crap takes time. Crap is not just that simple. Like, I get it, okay? I get all those things. But as far as from a gaming tester standpoint, I would be your man. Oh my God, I would be your man for that. Whoo-wee. Send me over them early game files. I will tell you what's going down with your whip systems or your physics systems in general. I feel like these AAA motocross game companies really need somebody that has not only gotten to a top level on MX simulators, so they understand that whole side of motocross physics, but also somebody that has really gotten to a certain level in real life riding, which I have. Not saying I'm Eli Tomac in real life, but I've rode enough in real life to know what the heck's going on, right? Get somebody to that level, get somebody that's really played Reflex religiously before, the greatest arcade motocross game of all time. Get somebody that's got that experience in all those different criterias, right, to be your tester. That's what you got to have, man. So either way, yeah, whip systems can get pretty complicated in these games, but it's just one of those things, you know, you just got to go, don't make it restrictive, and don't make it hitting a button, playing an animation over and over and over, the same animation over and over and over. If you steer clear of those two things, your whip system is going to be decent. It's going to be decent. I'm telling you, it's going to be at least bearable. But if it's restrictive, or it's hitting a button, playing an animation over and over, it's not developed. I mean, that's really all it comes down to. It's a undeveloped whip system. That's basically all it is. If it's restrictive, it's really just holding you back from being able to do some sort of janky, buggy, bigger whip that they don't really have, you know, ironed out yet. That's why they make it restrictive. So you can't even see what the actual whip system would be like. And if it's just hitting a button, playing an animation over and over, that means they don't really have actual inertia to the bike physics, because they don't have that actual pulling your thumbsticks in different directions up the jump face to get it to do different kinds of whips. They don't have that inertia and that physics feel, right? So then it just turns into hitting a button and playing an animation, right? Turns into that really quick. So either way, man, appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Yeah, the whip system's not perfect in Supercross 3, but oh my God, is it better than what they had before. Whoo-wee. It's not even a question in my mind, man. Not even a question. So either way, Really appreciate all the support, guys. Don't forget, if you send me a donation, I will shout out your message in the start of a future video. And if you make it on the top 10 list, I'll get you on there as well. So, yeah, I want to start doing a lot more fun stuff for the fans and for all the followers and subs. Going to start doing some more live streaming, getting on there, get some cool stuff going with that. So, we got a lot of stuff planned out. Just got to get that ball rolling, you know what I'm saying? That's what it's all about. So, be back on that next video, dudes.